Hey, so I wanted to look at a point that just came up as we were hanging out at the park with Max and Cindy and Drake, waiting to go drop him off for his flight back to DC. And this point I was looking at is anger, and specifically anger directed toward a child. And as parents, we often don't really consider the weight of our emotions on our children. It's really super easy to believe that children will forget, especially when they're very young, will forget when you yell at them, or that the yelling is necessary. So like, for example, let's say that you had something very valuable in your house. And Cindy's asleep right now, so we'll see how long she stays asleep. But let's say you had something very valuable in your house. Oh, let's say you had a $100 bill. And for some of you that might be valuable, for some of you it might not. But let's say you had a $100 bill laying out on the counter. And let's say your 2-year-old, right, or your kid, came up and took the $100 bill and crumpled it up and threw it somewhere where it got destroyed, or started tearing it up. What would you go through within yourself? What's the movement that goes on within you? Because typically you would be like, no, stop, don't do that. That's $100. This is valuable. Don't you understand? Don't you know? So going into anger about that, even though your kid doesn't really understand, children are born in this world and they do not understand the social structure and meaning and value of things in their environment. So as adults, we have to start looking at where are we participating in these automated structures and constructs of anger within ourselves towards things that we believe are slights to us. So for example, with that $100 bill, there may be a fear about money, there may be a fear about losing money, there might be this belief that I need to teach my child a lesson so that they'll never do that again in the future. So protecting loss, future loss, by impulsing this onto my child, that they need to be afraid of that. The problem is, with children, they don't understand the full context and everything that's going on in your mind when you get angry in that moment. All they experience is the anger, somehow associated with whatever's occurring, so association with that $100 bill, and just your anger and the money, right? And you don't know what kind of consequence that's going to create for your child, because in that moment they may associate, okay, my parents are stressed about money, I'm not supposed to touch money, right? And there's a lot of energetic movement in that moment. And what we also don't realize is that when we express that anger and impulse that anger, what we're actually doing within ourselves is trying to create a reaction within the child to feel guilt, shame, to feel that energetic movement. We're trying to get another person to do that as well. And we do this with each other as adults. And it happens instantaneously. It happens automatically. You're not directing the anger. You're not creating that anger in that moment. If someone were to come over to your house and accidentally break your computer, they were shuffling things around and they swiped your computer onto the ground, and you felt anger within that moment, even if maybe you saw that it was an accident. But that feeling that's going on inside of like anger, frustration, how come they weren't paying attention, and now they've broken my computer, now I'm gonna have to go get another one, that's gonna cost money, like they should have to pay for it. And maybe you express it, or maybe you don't. Maybe you suppress it within yourself and just say, oh, no, it's fine. But the movement is still going on within you, and it's not something that you're directing. So we do this with each other, but it's so obvious when we do it with kids, because kids do not have any grasp of our social rules. So we teach this point to children to, when we express anger and yell, to go into a reaction within themselves of fear, of shame, of guilt, of just like fear also that, think for a child with an adult yelling at them, it's like an automatic sort of natural fear of, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. Like, oh, something really bad, I'm gonna be hurt. This is actually like painful for me in this moment to have someone yelling at me like this. And it also impulses, when we do this as adults to each other, we're impulsing whatever happened as a child, and you literally become like a child again. So it's really fascinating, because we get angry for things that don't matter. There's actual things in this world that are actually happening that are causing people real substantial harm, and we get angry about the stupidest things, and we get angry at our children for the stupidest things, like spilling water all over the floor, or like splashing in the bathtub, or pulling flowers out of the garden, or not wanting to put their clothes on, or something, just these silly, stupid things that we will hold on to within ourselves, and then allow ourselves to like build up and get angry, and then to constantly tell our children no, or like to yell at them, or even if we're practicing the point of, I'm not going to yell at them, if we hold on to it within ourselves and just grit and bare our teeth and like hold on to that anger within ourselves and that energetic movement that's still going on within ourselves, like that's unacceptable too, because it'll come out in other ways, where you'll actually change your interaction with your child because of that stuff that you're holding on to. So what do we have to do as a society? Even if you don't have children, even if you're not a parent, it's unacceptable to be impulsing this point of fear as an anger for feeling slighted, onto children specifically. So when you have to interact with children on daily, you have to go out in your world and see children and be around children. And a lot of people express like, I don't like being around children. I don't like interacting with them. They're kind of like, it's their parents allow them to just run wild and do all this stuff. And that's not really understanding children. It's not really allowing yourself to be like a child and remember what it's like to be a child, because you went through that point of, hey, I'm walking around in my world and constantly learning and also figuring out the rules of our world, And if I'm impulsed with someone screaming and yelling at me because I did something wrong when I didn't fully understand what I did that was wrong, and then what'll happen is these children will grow up to be adults, and they'll be so consumed by fear that they'll be afraid to do anything. They'll be afraid that they're gonna make someone angry, or they'll be afraid if they do something wrong that they'll get in trouble. And a lot of us go through that. A lot of us know exactly what that's about. Or it's like those of us who are not afraid, we tend to do it in spite of. So in spite of someone yelling and getting mad at me, I'm just gonna do it anyways, like that's the other expression that some children go into, that they then live out as adults. Instead of us like supporting ourselves to let go of that automatic response of energy movement within ourselves, where we then need to project that out onto another person and get them trapped in this whole energy point, right? And when I say energy, what do I mean? Imagine a scenario where someone comes to your house and steals your car. Okay? Is that an acceptable thing to do? No. No, it's not acceptable. I'm not saying it's acceptable. But you wake up in the morning and you see that it's gone. What goes on within you that you're not directing, that just happens automatically when you realize that someone took your car? Is there an extreme point of anger within yourself? Do you go into an immediate fear of losing money? Is there a stress that goes on within you? Is there a fear that someone could have hurt you or something like that? I'm not saying it's acceptable for someone to come and steal your car. Like, let me just make that clear. That's not acceptable. But we have to look at how do we respond and react in scenarios like that. What is automated and what is self-directed? Is the anger that comes up, is the stress, is the anxiety, is the fear that comes up, the fear of loss, the worrying about money, are those things that are self-directed, or are those things that are running automatically within ourselves? Because then how do we respond? Let's say then someone drives our car back up and they're like, hey, look, I'm sorry, I did not mean to take your car. How would you respond? Or like even an even better scenario. Here's a really good one. Maybe a lot of you have been through this. But like, what if you're driving in traffic and there's lots of traffic, lots of things going on, and then someone hits you in their car? And you're not hurt, but what's the immediate response that comes up within you? Okay, what goes on within you? If somebody hits you, right, what do you immediately assume? What do you go into within yourself? Are you immediately within your mind blaming, angry, frustrated, mad at the person who hit you? Even if you haven't even interacted with them yet, you just sitting in your car, you've just been hit. You can tell you're not hurt. What's the immediate point that goes within you? Like anger, fear of loss, worrying about paying for your car to get fixed, like all this stuff. And then how do you go and interact with that person that hit you? And how do they respond? What are they going through? Let's say you accidentally hit somebody. What's the fear? Like, what's the guilt? What's the shame that you feel within yourself? Like, doesn't that keep us from being able to interact with each other effectively? And something I often reflect back to, because like Jesus was such a good example of an effective human being in our world. And so many people miss the real true message of Jesus. And there's so many good points that he makes, but like the point of specifically those who cause a child to stumble are like basically should just be cast out, right? And the different versions of the Bible say different things, but basically it's like you might as well have a rock tied around your neck and thrown into the sea, right? But children, and that you have to become like a child to get into the kingdom of heaven, right? Or the kingdom of God. It's written different ways in different versions. But really, what does that mean? It really means like you have to support yourself to let go of all of these things that are automated, where you're just perpetuating the cycle of abuse, anger, frustration, guilt, shame, all those things. And so as parents, we can do that. And if you're not a parent too, like when you interact with a child in your world and you see them as annoying, or you see them as, oh, they might potentially break something, or their parents not supporting them effectively, they're just a little terror or whatever, like that is all bullshit. Doesn't mean what the child is doing is acceptable, but your judgment and participation in that is unacceptable. So we have to support ourselves as adults, because we're just Every time we hold on to anger and then blast that onto even another adult, but especially onto a child, and we just get mad about, oh, you broke something, how dare you, like, oh, you're not allowed to do that, like, you need to stop, like, this is, this is not something you should be doing right now, or feeling shame that other people are gonna say that to your kid, and like being in fear that when you go out and like your kid does something that people are gonna get angry about, that they're gonna come over and yell at them, right? We all have to support ourselves, or those of us who are able to and aware enough to like see, okay, like, I'm not directing that anger within me. That's just something that is coming up automatically, like, I really don't want to actually exist within that. Like, I can feel the energy is actually, I feel it. I don't really want to experience it. Like, it's kind of titillating in a certain sense, like kind of like when you watch a horror movie, like that energetic experience, but you'll do things and say things within it that you'll later regret. Like, I mean, and if you were to look up from outside, seeing yourself yelling at a child, it's like, wow, that's totally not cool. You just kind of look like an idiot when you're doing it. And, but when you're caught up in it, when you're caught up in the energy, it seems right. Like, I'm justified within this. There's justice here. Like, I need to make another person feel what I'm feeling so that I can, I can feel right. I can feel justified. I'm right. You broke something that belongs to me. I need to tell you about that because you need to never ever do it again, right? None of that is needed. None of that is necessary. Like, it's because of that we're all living like very isolated, lonely existences where we don't actually support each other to be our very best. And it's automated. It's not you doing it. Like, because the energy will just come up automatically. You'll just feel really angry and you'll feel really stressed. And you can't just support yourself to breathe, let the energy go, and just respond and communicate something. Like, hey, look, this is important to me. This thing that you've broken. So how can we support, how can we fix this? Like, how can we look at, or does it even really matter? Like, we have to be able to look in every moment. Often with children, it doesn't matter. Like, it'll be something stupid that you'll yell at them for. Like, for example, spilling water all over the floor. Like, that's something that you can clean up. And that's something also that as you're cleaning up, you can teach your kid how to do it too. With the $100 bill, like, it's $100 bill, And so if that's causing a reaction within you, but it's $100, or if it were $1,000, like what, or if your kid, wrecked your car and drove it into a wall on accident, like, how would you respond, right? Is the anger necessary? And if you're on here justifying, oh, no, yeah, I had a right to be angry in that moment, or that other person had a right to be angry, because that's just something that comes up automatic within them. Like, look at that point from Jesus where he's saying, if you cause a child to stumble, basically you're the worst. That's basically what he was saying. So consider that. Are you causing a child to stumble if you're yelling at them for something that they've done instead of supporting them to understand why it's not best for them to have done that, or to actually question within yourself, does what they did really matter? Is this something that actually matters, or is it just part of a social rule that we can shift and adjust? Because there's lots of social rules we have that can be changed and that we should question. We should question, investigate, and keep what's best, the social rules. So another really cool quote from Jesus, and I'm just going to put it in my own words, but you can go and look it up for yourself, is that it's really cool because we often think that children are the pride of the parents, but the actual point is parents are the pride of their children, right? So children are actually the ones who are going to be taking pride in their parents. Parents should stand as the example of the behavior and the inner stability that children will want to accept, absorb, live as, and learn from as they grow, right? So that is a really good point to consider. if you're angry within yourself and you're frustrated and you're yelling at your child, that's what they're learning. Not only are they learning feeling frustrated that their parents yelling at them, feeling afraid, feeling scared, because let me ask you, if I were to sit here and start screaming and yelling at you, what kind of reaction would that cause within you? Would it cause immediate fear? Right? Because that's what most people go through. Like if you're out in your world just walking around and someone comes up to you and starts screaming and yelling at your face, what's the movement that comes within you? Is it, oh shit, wait, who is this person? What's going on here? Like, it's actually intense fear of survival in that moment. And we learn that over time. Instead of just realizing, oh, this person's clearly got something going on, like, let me just either try to support them or walk away. Where is the internal movement coming from, right? And you can see this for yourself, and maybe you can't see it, and you're just not admitting that it's there. But I mean, for most of us, and very likely for you, if you're self-honest, like that point comes up within you where it's like, if someone were screaming at me, oh, like, oh, stress, right? Or some kind of energetic movement within us. So with that point from Jesus of parents are the pride of their children, realize it's not just the parents, right? We're all parents of children. We're all guiding them and supporting them in this world. If you ever have talked to a child, you're creating part of their entire, because they're just absorbing everything in their environment, especially during those first 3 years, and then really the whole first 7 years too, but especially in those first 3. So really watch yourself, check yourself, and this is why self-forgiveness, and I mean, I'm going to keep talking about self-forgiveness. Why? Because it is the key to supporting yourself, to stopping those automated movements within you, and to, in a moment, be able to look with common sense and see what's happening actually here in physical reality, and to support a child to understand what's going on in front of them. Okay? You have to be stable within yourself in order to do that effectively. And this, not only will it support you with children, because that's so very, very crucial, even if you're not a parent, because really it's like adults are the pride of children, right? Children should be able to look up to adults in their environment and see and learn how to interact with people, how to do what's best, right? So don't cause children to stumble. Do not do it, even if you're not a parent. Like, really support yourself, right? Because those children are the ones who are going to be growing up and creating the world that exists as you grow older. That's the real legacy that you leave behind. So let's say you're not doing anything else to like really have a real effect in this world, okay? And you're just like, hey, I just want to live my life, I just want to do this. If you're to do one thing, it would be to support yourself to be stable, so that when you were to interact with a child in your world, and really any other adult too, that you're stable and effective, and you can clearly communicate with another human being. And that requires some work, because again, all of us were programmed from when we were really, what do I mean by program? It's, you can see it for yourself. What's automated within you? What are the thoughts that come up in that car accident scenario or the $100 scenario? Like, what comes up within you? Are you reacting to even the idea of, even the scenario that I'm bringing up, right? What's the movement that comes in within you? Because that movement doesn't have to exist. I know it's like you get so used to it. You've been like ingrained over years and decades even on things to be afraid of, things to watch out for, rules to follow, certain things that you have to do in order to avoid other people getting angry at you. And things that you should feel guilty for and feel bad for within yourself. And really, actually what that is just I should feel bad for having done that to that person. Really, that's just a point within yourself of like, because they're angry at me or something. Really, that's just a point within yourself of like saying, some of my anger is justified. Some of my anger is okay because some of that guy's anger is okay. So really, we need to clear up and let go of all the anger. And what do we need to do? We need to do that with people right now who are able and willing to forgive themselves for the anger. Realize, I don't need to be angry right now. The anger doesn't serve me. It's not supporting me to communicate effectively with another person. It's not teaching a lesson to my child, that's for sure. You know, if I'm angry at another adult in front of my child, what is that teaching them? That this is an appropriate response in that moment? And even if another adult is getting angry at me in that moment, how do I respond to them? Do I just return the anger? What is that showing my child? So if you don't have children, you can imagine a child with you at all times and just look at, okay, like, how would I respond and act in my world if I had another being there with me who's literally learning from everything I do and grasping and absorbing, like even if it's your own, you as a child, right? Like, how would you want to rewrite your own story, rewrite your whole, everything that you've accepted aloud from when you were a child? What would you like that to be? Because you can start that today. You can start it now. And if this sounds esoteric, the whole point is actually really simple, right? And we're sharing more of this stuff in our videos, just talking about like, how do you actually support yourself to let go of the anger and to not just automatically respond with anger, with frustration, with or if the anger is directed at you, shame, guilt, I can't believe, like something's happening in my world, like I'm just feeling that stress within myself and that anxiety. All of that can be let go of, and you can just be stable and look at a moment and look at what's actually going on in physical reality and communicate with another being and support them. Also, if you have someone in your world who's like totally just in a moment frustrated, angry, wouldn't you like to be that, have that ability to be so stable within yourself that you just calm them down in a moment and you can just remove whatever it is that's causing that person to be so angry, just with a few words you might say or something that you might do or a move you might make that you could just delete and support them to just breathe and let that point go? Because that's what we're doing as parents, and it's cool practice with our son Max and Seneca as she gets older, but she's not really interacting on that level yet. But with Max, and we're proving that it can be done. And now we go out and prove it in our world, and we prove it with people we talk to, with people we interact with, and just supporting them. And so it's something that I know that you can do too, right? If you're aware enough, or if you're watching this video like that and you're looking for that stability within yourself where you can walk into any scenario and see what to say, because you don't have all of your own stuff that's clouding your judgment or that's causing you to just feel a bunch of energy and stress and anger and frustration, all that stuff. Instead, that's all gone, and you can just see what is best to do, say, in a moment to support another person to let the point go as well, and support them to be able to equalize with you, to get on the same level where like you can actually then communicate. I mean, imagine what we could create in our world if so many of us are starting to do that, where we're not holding on to all the thoughts and like back chat and judgments and anger towards each other, and especially towards our children. We're not recreating that cycle with our children. That is the key to creating heaven on earth. That's not esoteric, that's not mystical. Like, do we want to create peace on earth, heaven on earth? Because that's the whole point. That is the entire point. And if you really understand the message of Jesus, not from a religious perspective, but you just go and investigate and look and see. I really like that point of parents are the pride of the children. That really reverses things, doesn't it? Like, it really shifts things around where it's like adults are actually what the children will look to and see pride within when the adults are walking this point of supporting themselves, are walking them to a point of stability within themselves where they're not just like acting out the cycles that they watch their parents do. I mean, we can literally change so much in just like a generation, right? If every adult would do this, that can do it, that understands what I'm saying and is like, okay, man, I want this stability in my life. Like, I really want to be able to not hold on to this anger or not feel a point of constant guilt and shame within myself. If we could support ourselves and then support this group of children that are all being born and growing right now, to never have to go through that, never be programmed with that point of, oh, like, I'm learning anger from you and I'm also learning shame and guilt within you yelling at me, stuff like that. If we could change that, I mean, imagine what our world could be like. And look, and a really cool point to do is to like go back and imagine yourself as a child and imagine what you would have liked from an adult in terms of total stability, in terms of total understanding. And if they do, if something comes up in like as a child, I mean, you can imagine, okay, like look back at your memories. Did you have a moment where you did something that was wrong and an adult in your environment yelled and screamed at you, or maybe even hit you, right? Or punished you, or they call it discipline, right? Disciplined you. That's not an understanding of what discipline is. Discipline would be if you as a child are not doing what is best, having an adult in your world go, okay, look, what you did was not best. So it happened already. There's nothing we can do about it now in terms of the fact that it already occurred. Like, this already happened. But let's support ourselves to learn from this, and to in the future do what's best. And I'll be here to remind you. I'll be here to support you. I'm not gonna, the point isn't don't need to fear me that I'm gonna punish you. I'm gonna walk with you and support you. And I'm telling you, if you could see Max, and you'll see him in videos and stuff like that, we're walking him through this process where he's not afraid of making a mistake, because even if he's like doing things that are not best, we're supporting him to understand why. We're supporting him to understand what's not best about it. Like, if he were to break something, or if he were to throw water on the floor when he was younger, right? I've been supporting him over time to understand why and what are the consequences of it, and learning how to clean it up. That's real discipline. And without the anger, without the yelling, without the frustration, that's the real kind of support that you would have wanted as a child, that I would have wanted as a child. And as adults, we can give that to children, not just as parents, because we're actually all parents. We're all responsible for this next generation of children that are growing up. So if we really take that responsibility on, firstly, by supporting ourselves to be stable, because that's what it takes. It really does. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, like, contact us, message us. If that's something that you really, really want for yourself, and you're like, hey, I'm ready to start, right? Find out how to do it, because you haven't seen anything like this. You've never seen results like this, but as what's created by really, truly, deeply going in and seeing what you've just accepted throughout your life and forgiving yourself and letting it go. And it's not esoteric, it's not mystical, it's not like you have to believe in anything even. You just have to support yourself to go back, look at it, forgive yourself, and in those moments when the energy comes up and the frustration comes up, when you've done the work of supporting yourself to forgive it and let it go and let go of those patterns, it doesn't come up anymore. Like, you walk yourself through it. So Sydney's waking up now, so I've talked for quite a while, but if this is something you're interested in, let us know. And you can check out videos of Max on Education is Evolution Facebook group page. Check it out, because he is the example of having a child where you don't break their will. You don't break their will, but you support them to understand what's best and the process that we're walking through to support him to do that, and the patience that's required within us as parents, and the patience you can develop as an adult, not only for children but other people in your world, without compromising yourself. This is not about compromising yourself to just give blanket patience. Like, we have to redefine the word patience, right? So that it's not just like grit my teeth as other people do things to harm me in my world and just suppress it all and repress it. That's not the point here, right? It's to develop yourself so effectively to the point where your stability, you're so stable that anything could come up in your world and it does not create a point of not self-directed movement within you. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, where it's just automatic movement where you're like, ugh, you know? That is not something that's coming from you. It's something that's been automated within you over time, right? And it's predictable. It's predictable, which is that example that I gave of if someone were to come at you, screaming at you in the street, what do you automatically go into within yourself of like fear, like, oh, that's that automatic expression. And if you're like, oh, I don't know about that, I don't think that's real, we'll test it, right? Next time you and I meet, we'll test it and see how it works. You know, see if that's for real within you. But anyways, yeah, so I'll end it here for today. But let's get started. Let's do this for real. Because I want you to have that same stability and knowingness and absolute certainty that I'm developing for myself, right? Where really being able to walk into any scenario and be around anyone and not have yourself moving and shifting within yourself, like really have real stability that's sustainable and that's lasting. So yeah, anyways, I'll talk to you guys later.